Hello and welcome to my spin on the last Lament unique crossbow build, this time with the Amazon Ascendancy. I'm using Siege Cascade and the Permafrost bolts to deal damage with enemies, besides the Compose Requiem unique skill from the crossbow. But we don't have the affinity to a specific element, so you can use anything you want really. So you can use, for example, Glacial Bolt and Explosive Shot instead, or Incendiary Shot if you want. It's up to you. I try to do it as generic as possible, so we don't have to worry about which skill we're using. As always, this video will be split into sections. I will put timeline labels into the video description so you can easily find specific section that you want to watch instead of watching the whole thing and waste your time. This is not a showcase video. If you want to see a gameplay video from this build, you can check video description. I will put a link to the specific video as well. So let's get started. What's so unique about this specific crossbow? It got three specific unique properties. The first is obvious one. It grants us a new skill called Compose Requiem. This skill, every 30 seconds, it grants us ability to gives us a buff for up to 12 seconds, which grants us use the Requiem skill. This is a very strong AoE ability, which you can use up to 12 seconds. This is our primary ability to deal damage to bosses, specifically Uber bosses. We don't really need to use it against anything else because we have damage from the Frost bolts for that. This skill, some people say it's bugged. It definitely has some bugs, but I don't think it's bugged in the way that some people describe it. Basically, if you take any damage during the 12-second buff window, this buff will drop. So if you start casting this ability and will take damage, you can no longer deal damage with this. You will have to wait another 30 seconds to start using it again. This is one quirk with this thing. Another one is, and this is definitely a bug, if you have an animal companion and this animal companion dies and will get a revive counter. If you have a Requiem buff during that time and counter reach 0, revive counter from the animal companion, the animal companion will revive, you will lose Requiem for some reason. I don't know why, to be honest. This is definitely a bug. So, second important property of this arbalete crossbow is after each kill, we have a chance to load a bolt into all crossbow skills with it. This is only relevant for skills that has more than one bolt in the clip. So for example, for the Permafrost bolts, it will not work because it only have one shot in the clip. But if you're using Siege Cascade with double barrel support, it will have two shots in the clip, and we can use it to properly load the bolt into it after each kill with a chance. And the third important property is if after firing the last bolt in the clip, we have more than 300 life, we will sacrifice that life to basically fire a free shot without reloading. This way we can basically fire indefinitely without losing mana or reloading, as long as we have life to spend. This is why we're using an evasion as our main defensive layer. And another thing is that we're using Amazon because it has a property to get a life leech from the elemental damage as well as physical. That way we can always stay on full life or close to full life, and always fire hard shots without worrying about life or mana, really. And use full power of this crossbow. So another downside is if we cannot hit enemies, we will lose life. So any hit from the white wall basically will kill us. We are high evasion armor character. We have 88% evasion, but we still can get hit. And if we can hit, we will die. This is why we're using Widow's Rain. This is very cheap armor that nobody uses. It has pretty great life stats, chaos res, element threshold, but main property what we're using for is that life what we will be lost by taking damage is instead reserved. And it's reserved until we take no damage for 5 seconds. This works really well with the sacrifice mechanic, because sacrifice does not count as getting hit by an enemy. So we can spend auto life that way, and we still have the full life for the purpose of taking damage from the enemies. So that way we can fire our shots without being worried to get low life and basically getting one shot. We can still get one shot because we are a evasion character, we don't have much life, but yeah, this is the game, I suppose. So let's talk about defenses. As I say, we are defensive evasion character based. It's only one layer of defense what you have. We have additional layers. For example, we have Animal Companion, and we're using a support which grants 10% damage we take from hits is taken from the Animal Companion instead. We pair this with the Starconja Head unique helmet to get another 15%, so we are getting 25% damage reduction that way. So instead 2350 life, we're getting 25% more basically, instead against hit damage. Starconja Head also great when we have low life, or if we reserve a lot of health, basically to get us to low life. It works with the reserves as well. We're getting 150% increased global evasion rating with that way. So if we get into low life, we will get a lot of evasion. Basically, from the 15,000, we're getting 21,000. And the third defensive layer what we have is the weapon slot into the buckler. It's very fast when we need it. We have another weapon set skill points spec'd into the para mechanic and more evasion. For example, we're getting 120% increased evasion rating on the non-live life. So we're getting basically 31.5 thousand evasion rating that way with the buckler. And also we can parry all hits on front when we need it. We're using a unique buckler called Calgar Arc, which grants us infinite projectile parry range. That way we don't need to worry to parry projectiles only from the initial source. We can parry it in any way. This is very cool. For example, you can parry Fire Creature Beam, which is wild creature that gets very nasty fire beam, but very easy to die for. You can just equip your buckler and press parry, and you will interrupt that beam. Very useful. Also, if you want, if you know the boss patterns of attacks, you can parry the boss. And because we have investment into parry buff window duration and the parry buff itself, we can put a parry buff for the 5.6 seconds for the 65% more incoming damage from attacks. This is a very good damage boost against specific bosses, but you know we can easily parry. For example, you can parry Zesht Fireball attack with this and grant itself a buff. You can parry on the Zesht fight as well, you can parry 2 projectiles, so you don't need to worry about dodging this. And just stay in the Ash circle and parry 2 projectiles simultaneously. Very useful. Kingdom Mist as well, you can parry its Thorn Wave and regular projectiles, and so on and so forth. This is for the defensive layers. Oh, and also because we are Amazon, we get a lot of extra evasion from our helmet, gloves, and boots. We don't have a lot of evasion rating from the armor, so our downside from the Amazon is not really a problem that way. For the specific tree stuff, we're using very generic attack damage nodes. We don't have an affinity for specific elements, so basically we're getting generic accuracy stuff, elemental damage of attacks with all elements, evasion, attack damage, maim. We do have a companion, which I will talk a bit later, but we're getting a node that grants us all increases in the direction of the companion damage also applies to you. So we can scale the damage that way as well. Also, we are crit based as well, because we're Amazon, we can get additional crit chance from the accuracy rating. From the accuracy rating that overflow our base chance to hit of 100%. What else? Elemental damage attack as well. More elemental damage attacks against elements. Evasion. More companion stuff. We are using life reach from the crossbow and from the ring. That's enough for our sustain. And we're using Wild Pact. Because we're using Widow's Ray, we don't need to worry about Life Flask, so we can drop it and use Wild Pact for the install leech. That way we can also leech our companion very fast, so it stays alive like most of the time, I would say. Blind, we are using chance to blind on attacks. Very useful. I think we get like 22% chance to blind from attacks. So it will grant us additional accuracy and the evasion chance from that. Some notes against damage from the unique enemies. More movement speed. And more area. That's basically it. For the second weapon set, we're using all related parry nodes, so we cannot be getting critically hit while parrying, but also getting more parry debuff duration and stun threshold from that. So we can parry most of the attack in the game relatively safe. Okay, for the damage, I'm using primarily Siege Cascade for the maps, for the AoE damage. This is a very cool skill. It gives you a lot of damage the more targets you're getting around you. So if there are a lot of enemies nearby, you will deal a lot of damage. So it's for the tier 17 maps, you can use explosive shot with fork. I would say clear speed will be higher than Siege Cascade, but if you're doing like 85% delirium maps, I recommend using Siege Cascade because it deals a lot more damage than explosive shot that way. and 85% delirium mobs are quite tanky, so you will not one-shot them with explosive shot that way. For this cascade, we're using AoE long shot. You can use another support for more AoE size instead, if you think your damage is enough. Fire and fusion for more damage, acceleration for the quality of life, so our shots fire faster, and double barrel to get effect from the crossbow to load the bolt into it. And second damaging ability is the permafrost bolt. We're using for single target. Also, because if we're getting hit, we will use a Requiem. I prefer to freeze enemies first with permafrost bolts, and while enemies frozen, you can swap into Requiem and just one-shot it basically into that window. We're using pinpoint critical for critical hit chance. Because we're using Baligara Virtuosity, we don't need to worry about the critical damage bonus, so we can use pinpoint without the downside. Cold Exposure, Ice Bite for the Requiem combo as well, so you can freeze enemies and then get 35% damage as cold for 5 seconds. You can swap into Requiem and use that buff as well. Close combat, we're using permafrost bolts basically point blank, and bullseye for the more critical hit chance because we're using Amazon Ascendancy. Emergency reload, you don't really need to worry about it. I'm using it occasionally for the Siege Cascade. In maps, if I drop into low life, so I need to basically do emergency reload, so I will not sacrifice more life and reach some of them back. Very rarely, you don't need to worry about it most of the time. Wind Dancer for the evasion buff with precision, blind, and dire strike. You can use something else instead of dire strike. It's only relevant for the map clear, I would say. Ripwire Ballista with Font of Rage. You can use Ballista in the maps for the more pin build up. Because we're using Siege Cascade, we're doing more damage for the pin target. It's relevant for bosses, so it's not that important. Punch Grenade, just in case for the hard situation, but you need to basically blind enemies and do a bit of stun into them. Parry, in case we're getting hit or we need to apply the buff into enemies. We're using mobility for the movement speed, while parrying less penalty for the movement speed while we're using Unbreakable for more stun resistance, Persistence for duration of the parry debuff, and Steadfast for the element threshold while channeling. I don't really know if it's working correctly, to be honest, because it doesn't apply into character sheet. So our element threshold stays the same while we're doing, but maybe it does, so we don't really need to worry about it. Requiem, Primal Armament, Cold Infusion, Elemental Focus, and Partial Tempo. You can swap Elemental Focus with something else if you want to freeze with this. Because I'm freezing with Permafrost Bolts, you don't really need elements with Requiem. And we're using a companion. In maps, and most of the time I'm using companion with periodic invulnerability aura. It's very useful to stay alive. It also has a synergy with our body armor. If we're getting buff from the pet, it's basically guarantees, but we're getting no damage for the 5 seconds. And we'll get all our reservation life back that way. Just be careful that if you're getting buff from the pet and pet dies while we're having a buff, this buff will drop. So it's not always a 5-second guarantee in vulnerability. It's only while your pet is alive. You can use another one. So ideal pet, it will be invulnerability aura with all hits shocks, for example. You can always use something like haste aura, all damage shocks, all damage ignites, and a couple more useful things like temporal bubble and so forth and so on. For the pinnacle bosses, I'm sometimes using Coming Calamity because I don't really need to worry about reservation and getting hit by the boss abilities if I can know what boss does, can dodge and parry him. And Coming Calamity grants us grants enemies no elemental resistances, so we'll deal more damage to them. So for example, for Zest, I will use Coming Calamity, and probably for the Arbiter as well. And for the Kingdom Mist as well. Kingdom Mist is very bad boss for the Widow's Rain, because that boss has a lot of degen stuff, like tornadoes, blood puddles, blood waves, thoughts, so it's very hard to not getting hit for 5 seconds. So using Coming Calamity with well packed and Leech Life in full is way better for that fight. What else? Let's go into our gear. I'm using Last Lament crossbow basically from the level 78. While you're leveling, you can use regular crossbow with galvanic shards and shock burst rounds all the way. I recommend to use pet that grants you all damage shocks for the synergy with shock burst round, so you can always nuke the bosses that way. You don't need to apply shock yourself for the effect. And then I swap for the Siege Cascade while I'll get Last Lament crossbow. Star Conjure Head, very cheap. It's like 1C item or even less, 1X probably. Widow's Rain, nobody uses it as well, 1X item. For the charm slot, for the rune slots, use whatever you want. Because I don't have the belt with 3 charms, I'm using Charm Talisman. If you do have a belt with 3 charms, you can use anything else. I recommend using, for example, 40% reduced effect of curses on you, because curses are very annoying, especially with no new temporal chains in maps. So you can deal with that way. And instead of 2% max life, you can use resist or something else as well. I probably will drop life for the curse reduction. Maligar Virtuosity gloves. A bit on the expensive side, like half divine, I think, or something like that. Very great gloves for damage if you're using a lot of accuracy with the Amazon. Belt, look for the charm slots, life, one stat like strength and resists. You can also use Headhunter instead, or the Ingenuity if you want. But for the Ingenuity you need Great Rings. So it's easier to just get regular belt. Although regular belts kinda sucks in interesting modifiers department. Boots, movement speed, life. I recommend one stat like dexterity or intelligence on that and 2 resists. Amulet, accuracy, life, level 12 projectile skills, resists, something like that. All natural is pretty nice. Anoint. You can use anything you want, really. If you have resist, you can anoint something else. Rings. One ring I recommend using with the Leech. If you don't have ring with Leech, you will need to spec into Life Leech nodes here, so it's 4 points. So instead I recommend to find a ring with the Leech damage. Accuracy, evasion, life, resists. Same goes here. You can do a flat damage, accuracy, life, stats. Up your stats. You need 116 strength for the crossbow and 200 plus dex. I think you need 205 for the level 20 gems for the companion. I'm at level 19 right now. I will upgrade. And for charms, you need immunity to bleeding and ignite as the main ones, because while we're using Widow's Reign, G-Gen is very dangerous for us. Poison not really, but ignite and the bleed are very dangerous because they're a very long time. And we cannot start the no damage timer while we're ignited or bleeding. Also, I recommend to get any jewel with carded blood immunity for the same reason, because carded blood can be pretty nasty in the breaches or the simulacrums, for example. And that's basically it, I should say. If you're swapping into Common Calamity for bosses, you can swap Frost Bolt's gems from the Cold Exposure and actually only Cold Exposure for the something else, like more freeze build up, for example, because you don't need exposure for that. And I think that's it. If you have any questions, you can ask away in the comments. I usually answer them pretty fast. So if you need some tips how to level up character, or if you have problems with mechanics or some bosses, you need some tips on that front, you can ask, I will help you. If you need an update for some section of the video what I was not covered, you can also ask. I can maybe get a follow-up video if you have problems and questions with it. And I think that's really it. So thank you for watching. Goodbye.